Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, all my brothers and sisters are all safe and well. If you haven't already, please share, like, comment and subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell notification button so you are made aware of the latest update. Now, it is good news, alhamdulillah, that vaccines are finally being rolled out all over the world. In the UK where I live, some 5 million doses of it have already been administered. However, we have a problem here in the UK. A big one that is costing lives and will cost many more if we don't sort it out as a community. It is an unfortunate irony of this COVID-19 pandemic that the people who are most affected by it, whom are most dying from it, people like you and me, the BAME community, the Black, Asian, minority ethnic people, which of course includes Muslims, at a rate that is staggering, 5 times as much as the white community, are the least likely to want to get vaccinated. Our communities are scared of this vaccination. Now, a study from the Royal Society for Public Health found 57% of Black, Asian and minority ethnic people said they would take the vaccine. That is not good enough, especially when you compare it to the white people, the white community, which is at a 79% rate. Now, that's a big difference that needs to change, my dear brothers and sisters. It's unacceptable, completely unacceptable. Now, Professor Martin Marshall, chair of the Royal College of GPs, says, quote, "We are concerned. People within the BAME communities are not only more likely to be adversely affected by the virus, but also less likely to accept the COVID vaccine when offered it." End quote. My fellow brothers and sisters, this means only one thing. If we do not inform and persuade our BAME brothers and sisters, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, and grandparents to take this new COVID vaccine, we will see hundreds of thousands of extra unnecessary deaths of our dear beloved ones. These are people and relatives we know and love and want to be around us for a very long time, inshallah. So why are BAME communities less likely to want to take the vaccination? Unfortunately, most of us in the BAME communities get much of our news and information about COVID-19 from social media, so places like WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, etc., as opposed to, say, the news or official government outlets. Now, such information is likely to be less accurate and more unreliable. As a result, we, as a community, are more likely to fall prey to conspiracy theories that are not based in science and fact. Now, here are some of the most common conspiracy theories about the vaccine that have spread in and outside our BAME communities and are not true. Now, I've sourced these from the BBC News, so they've been fact-checked and they are 100% legit. The first conspiracy theory is that the vaccine would inject a microchip. Now, this conspiracy theory has literally spanned the entire globe. It's global. And it claims that the coronavirus pandemic is a cover for a plan to implant trackable microchips, and that the Microsoft co-founder, Bill Gates, is behind it all. But the fact is, there is no vaccine, quote, microchip, end quote, and there is no evidence to support claims that Bill Gates is planning anything like this in the future. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation told the BBC that the claim was, quote, false, end quote. These rumours actually started way back in March when Mr. Gates said in an interview that eventually, quote, "we will have some digital certificates," end quote, which would be used to show who'd recovered, who'd been tested, and ultimately who had received a vaccine. He had made no mention whatsoever of microchips. Nonetheless, this led to one widely shared article headlined, quote, "Bill Gates will use microchip implants to fight coronavirus," end quote. Now, the article makes reference to a study funded by the Gates Foundation into a technology that could store someone's vaccine records in a special ink administered at the time as an injection. However, the technology is not a microchip and is more like an invisible tattoo. It has not been rolled out yet and would not allow people to be tracked, and personal information would not be entered into a database, says Anna Jacquelinek, a scientist involved in the study. Another conspiracy is that the vaccine would change our DNA. Some newly created vaccines, including the one approved in the UK, developed by Pfizer, BioNtec, use a fragment of the virus's genetic material, or messenger RNA. Quote, injecting RNA into a person doesn't do anything to the DNA of a human cell, end quote, says Professor Geoffrey Hammond of Oxford University. It works by giving the body instructions to produce a protein which is present on the surface of the coronavirus. The immune system then learns to recognize and produce antibodies against the protein. Another popular conspiracy that is doing the rounds is one that claims that vaccines contain the lung tissue of an aborted fetus. This is also 100% false. Quote, there are no fetal cells used in any vaccine production process, end quote, says Dr. Michael Head of the University of Southampton. One conspiracy video shared widely on Facebook refers to a study which the video claims shows evidence about what's inside the vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University. But this video is wrong in its interpretation. The study in the video was exploring how the vaccine reacted when introduced to human cells in a lab. Now, people may have gotten confused, hence the conspiracy, because in the developing of a vaccine, yes, there is a step where cells grown in a lab, which are the descendants of embryonic cells, are used that would otherwise have been destroyed. But the developers of the vaccine at Oxford University say they worked with cloned cells, and these cells, quote, are not themselves the cells of aborted babies, end quote. But even though cloned cells are used, this cellular material is removed when the virus is purified and not used in the vaccine. The technique was developed in the 1960s, and no fetuses were aborted for the purposes of this research. Many vaccines are made in this way, explains Dr. David Matthews from Bristol University, adding that any traces of the cells are comprehensively removed from the vaccine, quote, to exceptionally high standards, end quote. Now, another conspiracy. The conspiracy that the vaccine contains pork and alcohol, and this applies more to the Muslim community. But this has also been widely debunked. Some vaccines, such as the shingles vaccine and the children's nasal flu vaccine, can contain pork gelatin. The COVID vaccine, on the other hand, from Pfizer, Moderna and AstraZeneca, do not contain this, nor do they contain any other animal products. Dr. Habib Naqvi, director of the NHS Race and Health Observatory, said language and cultural barriers played a role in fueling vaccine skepticism, adding, quote, we need to be clear to our communities that there is no meat or meat products in the vaccine. There is no pork, there is no alcohol, and it has been endorsed by religious leaders and religious councils. Officials are working with role models and community and faith leaders to debunk myths, he added. Another conspiracy theory is that it has happened too quickly and therefore it can't be safe. Yes, true, the COVID vaccine trials have happened at breakneck speed, but they haven't skipped any of the steps. That is important to remember. Safety trials always begin in the lab with tests and research done first on cells and animals before they are moved on to human studies. The principle is to start small and only move to the next stage when everything is safe and all the concerns have been allayed. That means tests are eventually done on large numbers of volunteers. In the case of the Pfizer BioNtec, around 40,000 individuals were tested on before the vaccine was approved in the UK. All of the work and findings are then checked and verified by an independent body. Approval is only given in the UK if the regulator, which is the MHRA, is happy that a vaccine is safe and effective. Checks continue after approval to make sure there are no further side effects or long-term risks. In conclusion, my dear brothers and sisters, your concerns and my concerns are valid. Nobody is stupid for being cautious. That is a good thing. But when we examine the facts behind these conspiracies, the bottom line is they are not true, and we can rest assured that this vaccine is pretty much as safe as it can be. It's as safe as any other vaccine out there. These are unprecedented times. Sadly, thousands have died, our loved ones included. Religious authorities have endorsed the vaccine, that we ought to uphold the principle of preserving life. Let us all first pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for shifa and protection, for He is the only giver of life, cure and health, and then take this vaccine and save lives. Stay safe, my brothers and sisters. I will see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And never forget, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasul.